Hi, in this video, we're going to be working in section 3.4. We're learning about dividing decimals. All right, so we do have a little rule here, which I copied out from your textbook. To divide, to change a fraction into a decimal. So we're going to break this down into different steps because actually the dividing of decimals is a little more complicated than the multiplying because there's different ways in which these problems can be stated. So to change, we start with changing a fraction into a decimal. To do that, we divide the denominator into the numerator. I'm going to show you with problem 1 here. So the denominator is 2, and we're going to divide that into the numerator. Okay, and inserting to its right a decimal point. So here's my 11, and it has a decimal point after it because you can always put a decimal point after it, a number without changing it. And as a matter of fact, you can add zeros to the right of a decimal point, and that does not change the value of the number. So that's just what we're going to do. We're going to add enough zeros to get the answer that we want. So I'm not quite sure how many zeros I'll need, but you'll see what happens. So 2 goes into 11 5 times, because 5 times 2 is 10. And now we subtract. And 2 goes into 1. Well, I'm going to bring the 0 down. 2 goes into 10. I should have asked, right? And 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And then we have a 0, remainder 0. So we know we're done with the problem. And then what we're going to do is place the decimal point in the answer directly above the decimal point that was inside the little dividing house. So we see that 11 over 2 is equal to 5.5. It's 5 wholes and 1/2. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do, actually, I think this is number 3. And let's go ahead and do this a little out of order. We'll come back to 2. And I'm going to take some door room. So we're looking at 10 3/4, and we would like to express 10 3/4. We would like to express 10 3/4 as a decimal number. Hi, so coming back to the worksheet, we're going to work on number 9. Number 9 asks us to express 2/3 as a decimal and round to the nearest hundredths. So let's go ahead and write 2/3 as the division problem. So it's 3 into 2. Okay. And we're asked to round to the nearest hundredth. Now, hundredths is the second decimal place. And if we're going to want to round to the second decimal place, we need 3 decimal places of calculation so we can do that. So what I'm going to do right here is get my 3 decimal places, right? Which was basically 2 from the hundredth plus 1 for the rounding. Okay. So we're going to work here in this division problem to, and go ahead and you can kind of work, and I'll work as well, 2 into, we know the decimal point's going to be right there. I'm just going to start with that. You can add it at the end, but you can certainly add it at the beginning. All right, so 3 going into 20. 6 times 3 is 18. I need to bring down a 0. 3 going into 20, 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, and 3 is going into 20. It's kind of repetitive. Repeating decimal. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, and so we know that we were asked to express this answer to 2 decimal places. So we did calculations to 3, and now drawing the rounding wall, peeking over the rounding wall, we notice that the digit to the right of the rounding wall is a 6, which means we're going to increase the digit to the left of the rounding wall. So that 2/3 is going to be 0.67 to 2 decimal places. All right. So let's go ahead and continue on with the problems. The next problem is to round this mixed number, express this as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I'm just going to erase this part of the board and get started on this problem. Okay, so number 10, 2 and 3 over 16. So I'm going to use the method that I showed you where we hold the whole number aside and just convert the fractional piece to a decimal and then append. So I'm looking at 3 over 16 and I want to figure out what's the decimal equivalent to 3 over 16. So that is 16 divided into the 3. And I know I'm working to the nearest hundredth. So I want to put 3 zeros here. Okay, 16 goes into 3. It does not. 16 goes into 30 one time. And let's go ahead and do our subtraction here. Okay, so we're going to bring down a 0 here and continue to work. It'll take a minute. I'm going to pause while I work. Okay, and 3 goes into 140 8 times. 8 times 16 is 128. Checking my notes over there. Okay. And now we're looking at 16 going into 128. How about we try a little trial and error? And 16 times okay, so I was having a little trouble and I just paused the video. If you'd like to pause it as well until you get your calculations organized, but I believe they're correct now. So 16 goes in to 3.187. That's to 3 decimal places. And we are asked to round to the nearest hundredth. So again, coming over to the bar, it comes between the 8 and the 7 and looking on over. So what we get is we're going to have to increase because the digit is a 7. And so we see that 3 over 16 is 0.19. Okay, let's take a moment, check that problem, and then we're going to go on to 7 into 26. Begin by expressing the problem. Oops, we are not done. I'm glad I checked. Okay, so this is only the 3/16 part. So in order to actually answer the question at hand, we need to append the 0.19 component over here to the whole number piece of 2. So here's our final answer. Okay, so let's move on. And we're gonna look at the next problem, 7 into 26. And let's check the decimal point, that accuracy we need. 7 into 26 expressed to the nearest tenth. Okay, so we'll go ahead, because we're interested in the tenth, which is 1 decimal point, we're gonna move our calculations to 2 decimal points, so we have what we need for rounding. So 7 goes into 26 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, and go ahead and carry down one of the zeros. 7 goes into 50 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. And we're going to bring down that 0. 7 goes into 10 1 times. And now we need to round to the nearest tenth. So here's our rounding wall. Peeking over, the fact that that digit is a 1 means that we just truncate. So what we have is 7 into 26. I'll write it like this, excuse me, 26 divided by 7 to the nearest tenth is 3.7. Okay, so let me check the answer. This is number 11. Yes, okay, good. So pause the video. Let's work on 12 through 14. Actually, I'm going to stop the video here and I'll come in with a part 2, but go do 12 through 14 and then look for part 2.